And with us now, Amitabh Kant, of course, the man who's been really leading all the talks from the Indian side with many people, answering questions, answering queries. Just before I come to you on all of the other exciting stuff that's happening, it's really fascinating this year at Davos to be seeing India being really clearly painted as the good guy on climate change. We are taking the lead on this. We're pushing ahead with the Solar Alliance, the Prime Minister's speech. Everyone waiting to see what Trump is going to say, but this could be something completely different. You encouraged by that?
Oh, greatly. I think the important thing is that Prime Minister stressed on it enormously. I mean, climate change, and it was the issue of the day because suddenly, all of a sudden, Davos had heavily snowed, which it had never done during this period, during the last 20 years. And therefore, this was a very, very critical issue. So not merely climate change, but openness in trade, which I mean, both these issues touch the heart and minds of all the participants here.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask him that one of the key issues that I think we need to address out here is this entire question of policy consistency. Yeah. I'm sure many people have raised it with you. Every time I'm asking anybody, what do you think of India and the India story? Yeah. They ask about questions about policy consistency. Yeah. What do you make of that?
So Vikram, two things. One on which you have to give credit to this government. One is that it's carried out very bold structural reforms. And I think during the last 3 years, there's been a huge amount of work done on one, ease of doing business, and secondly, on consistency and predictability of reforms. And I think over a period of time, this is the stress of this government. Make India extremely easy and simple, and secondly, ensure predictability and I think Prime Minister stressed this actually, that consistency and predictability will be the hallmark of his policies.
Okay. Can I ask you one other question, Amitabh, while you are with us, which is the new technologies that are coming? Yeah. Now, I've heard this repeatedly at Davos out here, that there are very few people and even fewer governments that are really understanding what's happening when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to blockchain, when it comes to biotech, when it comes to the need for data and ownership of data, genomics. Very few people are getting it. Perhaps the Chinese are thinking about it, nobody else is. Is that something, is that a message you're going to carry back from Davos? That we as India need to really think this through?
But Vikram, actually the biggest reform, structural reform in education has been carried out by this government through its Atal Innovation Mission. We have supported close to 2,500 tinkering labs we are supporting now. We have done this to about 1,000 schools. We are going to support another 1,500 schools through a challenge route where we are providing robots, 3D printers, additive printing, 3D printers, all at school level from 6th standard onward. And I think that is the structural reform which is required in India, because all along we've gone with this Anglo-Saxon model of education, and you need to radically change this. So these tinkering labs are actually leading to children at a school level finding solutions to the problems of India. I mean, relating to agriculture, relating to water, and if you are able to find solutions to the problems of India, actually you are not finding a solution for the 1 billion people of India, but for the next 7 billion people who will move from poverty to middle class.
So that's fine, that's great. But looking at what the government would be doing, and you obviously are one of the people who will be pushing pushing the envelope on this. We have startups. Indians do great work on AI and on all of these technologies in Silicon Valley. What can we do to set in place a sort of a system like the Chinese do, where we are almost systematically working on how will data be controlled, how will data be managed, what are we going to do in AI, what will be the regulation around it. Therefore, India becomes one of the leaders in this entire area. What are we doing about it?
So Vikram, I think one of the great things, I mean, India's biggest achievement to my mind is that it has been able to create public infrastructure. And unlike what China did with Alibaba and Tencent, unlike what Google and Facebook, I mean, there the data is owned by private companies. In India, the data is what? It's Aadhaar and it's UPI. And on top of that...
So Noah Harari had a very interesting session, the author of Sapiens, one of the most brilliant guys I've ever heard. So he says there's a danger with the government having access to all that data, because it could lead to digital dictatorship. 1984 on steroids.
So the challenge is that there in India you have 10,000 fintech startups innovating further on the government platform. So you've created a great public-private partnership today. I mean, how do guys like Paytm, how do all these new companies, how do they flourish? They flourish because on top of this data. And you have a huge amount of work being done on paperless, cashless transaction by new startups like Bank Bazaar, etc.
Okay, so, you know, just in case you're seeing, wondering what the activity behind you is, we do have Vijay Shekhar Sharma of Paytm who's come in, Rana Kapoor of Yes Bank who's come in. Vijay, are you wearing a mic? Oh, yes, you are wearing a mic, right?
Am I? No.
Is he wearing a mic? No, he's not wearing a mic. So, before Vijay comes in, Rana, I just want to get your take on some of the things that he's saying. What have you been hearing about what the government of India is going to do to keep the progress going? What have you been hearing here at Davos?
I think fundamentally, Vikram, what Amitabh Kant has said is 100% correct. That fundamentally we have built an architecture in our country which is driven by the India stack. The India stack, the India public stack, is a very frugal architecture. It's the backbone of the entire digital and digitalization network of our country. The question is, how do you create offshoots out of that and build them into frugal innovation, which is the point Amitabh ji has been saying. And banks like ours, UPI, Merchant UPI, Bheem, and we are getting fantastic volumes as a consequence of all of this, because we are building them as extensions, as adjacent strategies on the back of India's public stack.
So to me, that is the strength. India could be ahead of the curve than other countries in some of these areas. That's what
I think number one, unquestionably.
Okay. You've heard some of the concerns though about, is it all going to get hacked? Who's going to own the data? Is it, you know, is there some problem with it? What about Aadhaar and the linking of Aadhaar to everything? How would you respond to some of that?
So, first of all, I want to tell that how the India stack context comes in a bank relationship. Banks have traditionally only taken deposited and lent. They have never built a payment system for themselves. They have always relied on either, let's say, Master Visa or MX or card networks, so to say, or in this case now an Indian UPI system. But the truth of matter of truth is that while these are UPI sort of is a replacement of some of those payment options, networks, and pricing wise superior and execution by superior, many times superior, the amount of technology requirement for bank in this age is many times more than what we are talking certain offerings are. So first is foremost that. Now talking about the concerns, I think it's understood. You quoted 1984 on steroids. This is such a sad statement to ever happen, and such a sad thing to ever happen. I wish that it doesn't happen, and definitely government having a single access to all the data is the concern that when you talk about leftist, rightist and so on. My understanding here is that Aadhaar is needed. What we need is far more security around it, far more secure Aadhaar, and far more open and clear privacy laws in the land. Aadhaar is not wrong. Okay, the potential threat. But that's always the
question, right, behind it. So, Rana Kapoor, I wanted to ask you, what is your take on this? You know, is our data safe in India? Is it secure in India? Do we have an adequate framework for protection? And let's remember, that's all that I've heard in Davos all week long is data is essentially all that's going to matter, and the ownership of data is all that's going to matter 10 years from now. So in that context, are we doing all the right things?
You see, in India, we are not Navy SEALs, so we can't get 10 out of 10. But the fact of the matter is that we are on a scale of 1 to 10. We are somewhere between 5 to 6 on the overall security aspects of data. And number two, the point I want to underscore is that Aadhaar, which is what Vijay was also alluding to, today is covering 95% of Indians. And India lacked for the last 70 years a social security program. All of a sudden, we have a program where we can disseminate, we can distribute, and we can do the KYC, we can do the AML, we can open bank accounts, and we can transact, and we can do it very frugally at the lowest cost in the world, which is what Amitabh was saying earlier. And that's the point I really want to reinforce, that we are today into a very frugal financial innovation system that is being led by leadership.
So last word from you, Amitabh.
Vikram, I was working in the traditional fisheries sector of Kerala, where opening bank accounts for traditional fisher women was critical for me at that point of time. And I remember running around bankers, and it took me about 11 months to open a bank account for traditional fisher women and fishermen whom we were supporting. Last week I walked into a bank and it took me 55 seconds using my biometric to open the bank account. And so look at the paradigm. And secondly, look at
what happened if somebody? But can your biometric?
Second thing, let me tell you. Last October, we were doing digital payments. Look at this. Last October, we were doing 100,000 transactions a month. Last month's figures, which has just come in, we've done 145 million digital transactions. Okay. Vikram, we made a quantum jump in technology. You know, you journalists, some of you are getting over obsessed. You're using your mobile all the time. Yes. Some private sector player has access to all your data.
That's true. So the question, okay, so let's
in Aadhaar,
yeah.
I mean, it's by consensus. The existing Aadhaar Act says that it respects privacy.
Pretty much by March you may have to link Aadhaar to everything, otherwise you can't get much done. So that's really
based on your consensus.
Okay. And then it builds a social security system which is unprecedented in a short span of time.
Okay.
And the dissemination of duties.
Now that you just heard and you probably were going to go that side, it's a question to you, Vikram. You know that as a digital age, we sort of generate so much digital footprint which goes to someone or other.
Who should own your data? Should it be a corporation? Should it be the government? And are you willingly and voluntarily giving up your data to various people in exchange for services, for, you know, and it goes across the board, right? You're right now giving up your data to chat with friends on Facebook. Tomorrow you'll give up, and that's what Professor Harari was saying yesterday, you're going to give up your data, your biological data for healthcare, and that has its own implications. Where else is this headed to now? So, I mean, I want to know what is your take on it, and I'm going to start with you, sir. Who should own that data? Should it be the government or corporations or neither? Or should you have some control?
I'm a great believer that we must always trust the government. Number one. Number two, we must create. Yeah, you know why? You know why? If we don't trust the government, we have no business to be in business. Number two, that we must always have faith in the government and build the business to business connect so that we have apparatus in place to do the KYC and the AML. Because the concern here is anti-money laundering and the KYC. So if you can meet those filters, the third thing that happens is transactions, which is where the business guys make all the difference. I was the first one to launch on 2nd of January in 2017, so it's about a year ago, the first blockchain vendor supply system with the Bajaj Electricals in partnership with IBM Watson. I was the first one in India, right? So, and I tell you, it's worked extremely well.
So blockchain, so now here's the question.
And no KYC, no AML issue.
So here's the question, Vijay, blockchain, when the government at some point is going to say, now start linking blockchain with Aadhaar, so they know not just everything else that they also know your transaction, they know the entire ledger, they know the history of every transaction you've ever done in your life.
Yeah. So
and you're comfortable having that data with the government?
So let's bring a metaphoric context to it to understand where I stand. Because automobiles can kill people on the road, will we have automobiles or not?
No, that's okay.
And effectively in this case, it is not just scary, it is lethal if you look at in a negative way and alternate way and alt opinion way, and there is no secret about it that it is.
It is dangerous. No, hang on, you're saying it's dangerous.
If people do not follow traffic rules, if people do not follow and governments don't make traffic rules and follow them, they will become mess on the road. Exactly the same way with the data. If there is no regulation of the data ownership, if there is no regulation and privacy law well settled in the country and implemented in the country, if there is no data policy which is very acknowledged by population and masses of the country, then it could be a mess. Not just by the single government or some corporate owning it, it will be owned at so many places that you do not even know where it has gone. Basically, digital has started to create digital trails which are scary.
And can I just tell you, can I just add to that? Blockchain was one of the things that we spoke about. The next sort of data that is going to really start to come out is biological data, right? Biometric data. What's happening inside your brain? What's your heart doing? You know, how do you react? I mean, Professor Harari yesterday had a brilliant example. The governments in North Korea, for example, will be able to have sensors. When you look at the picture of the dear leader, Is your blood pressure going up or down? Are you reacting positively or negatively? You're reacting negatively into the concentration camp with you. Can you imagine that as 1984 on steroids?
I think no doubt about it that the alt view of every situation is.
Is it really an alt view? It's not necessarily an alt view.
Okay, let me tell you. Just because you're climbing a mountain, seeing downstairs is literally scary. When you are at the peak of mountain, you are in the biggest risk movement and the biggest high of your life.
Okay, so now let me ask you, Amitabh, this question. You're saying there's nothing, why should you be scared of giving all of this to the government, right? Maybe it's fine. Maybe I'll trust you with it, right? I'll say, Amitabh, wonderful person, this government, wonderful government, whatever it is, and you say you'll give it. How do you know that tomorrow somebody else is not going to come who's going to misuse that? And the sort of control and the sort of what you can do, like if everything is linked to Aadhaar, people have said this, if you're not a nice, government doesn't like you, they say, okay, we are disconnecting your Aadhaar number, that's it, you're gone. And you're saying it's by consent and it's voluntary. Actually, if you can't do anything in the world without signing up with Aadhaar, it's not necessarily voluntary anymore.
First of all, you must read the Aadhaar Act. It lays huge emphasis on privacy. You can't link up Aadhaar without your consent. And all the people whose bank accounts get linked up with Aadhaar based on consent. Number one. And yesterday, I was in the session, Professor Ares. The key point that he made, that ultimately, it's whatever we are doing is for humanity's sake and for human happiness. And he concluded by saying that for medical sake and for their own health and well-being, individuals will gladly surrender their data so that they can get better health access. And my view is, that and let's look at technology, and let's look at blockchain technology, which you raised. I mean, today, if our judges don't eat, don't drink, don't sleep, you will not be able to clear, even with all that, it will take you 35 years to clear the pendency of data in our courts. And that's what one of the leading judges has said, after analysis by. And if you look at, and 70% of these cases relate to land. If blockchain technology and artificial intelligence enables you to clear these cases in the next 2 years, or if land record cases can be totally eliminated based on registry.
The use of blockchain in land is an absolutely wonderful example of something that should be done, must be done. So, let's not, we shouldn't say it's either you should ban blockchain or you should embrace all aspects of it. 100%. That's, and you've given the perfect example of when blockchain should be coming, and that you should do day after tomorrow. I guess what we've got to try and do is find the right path, right, between the benefits of all of what is happening and some of the potential negatives. Would that be a fair way to look at it?
So you need to maintain the right balance between progress, human happiness, and privacy.
Okay. Was that a fair conclusion?
Absolutely, because data can be gain or boon depending on the privacy and the compliance that it comes to.
Okay.
I'm a great believer.
I'm just out of curious, where do you think blockchain is actually headed to? I mean, you must be seeing this entire Bitcoin bubble. Or, some people say it's not a bubble. Some believe it's a total bubble. Do you think this is going to?
Some who said bubble, no more say bubble. Gemini.
Okay, some.
I think we have to appreciate that there is a learning curve. Number one. Number two, India and our leadership here, and leadership that represents India, like Mr. Amitabh Kant, must bring the future into the present.
I'm a mere civil servant.
But must bring the future into the present. And when I say that, what do I mean? What I mean is that today India developed white collar arbitrage in terms of IT services. Today we have an opportunity to convert that into the ultimate AI, call it what you like, blockchain, machine learning. All of those capacities are already sitting, the bench strength is there in India. Now we have to migrate the model and build that frugally. I always underline this word frugally. You know why? Because India can be the most efficient renderer of IT services in the new age, AI, everything included in the world. And this is the point that Amitabh was making at the inception.
Okay. Do you agree with that India is one of the countries that could be a real leader in this? In the fourth industrial revolution?
No.
You don't think so?
Why no is because India, all these technologies are built by top brain and the bottom brain is more or less implemented. The builders are more or less not welcomed in India or staying in India, the brain drain and so on. The reverse brain drain has to happen. It has started happening in some other countries where people are no more going US. We need builders of extreme high caliber, and then deployment, like Sir said, is very easy and scalable. So India can be leader in implementation and scale. India may not be the leader in building it. And by the way, on the point of crypto and point of blockchain currencies that we talk about, my personal opinion, extending on this conversation, would be that this is like 99 and 2000 of internet. We over expected in short term and underestimated what internet would be doing. Let's remember, it is a bubble for the person who's seeing it short term, and it is something extraordinarily valuable. In the age where data is with everyone, including government, including many corporates, this set of ledger and blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and cryptocurrency does not mean a currency of cash or money transaction. Bitcoin is no more left as a payment system, incidentally. So these things will become like how internet is useful today.
Yeah, so the technology is robust and very important and sound. You could have a bubble in the value of individual coins, right? Like Bitcoin. That's really what people say the bubble is.
But at the same point in time, these are absolutely internet days of 99, 2000.
So the technology, nobody is disputing.
I think with Vijay, I have one, because I admire him a lot, so I have the right to disagree with him. The Y2K problem of 2000 before he was born, literally, is history, because that is a traditional conventional problem. The challenge today is India's new opportunity to displace all the wonderful boys and girls we exported into white collar jobs in the rest of the world, and how to make them into creative entrepreneurs. The new century is about the whole new mind. The whole new mind is about right brain thinking. How do you create new energy? Left brain is the mechanical mind, the creative mind is the right brain. So now I think India is, with people like Vijay and all, fantastic leaders and governmental leaders like Amitabh are sending exuding a message which is so powerful, that let's create in India, make in India, and develop in India, and entrepreneurship in India. To me, that is the ultimate dice equation.
Okay. So last word from you, Amitabh, as we wrap this up. The Prime Minister also spoke about, at his speech even here in Davos, about how AI and these sort of technologies, we have to master that, because that's the way the world is moving. So I'm again coming back to the structure of it. Like, for example, you're encouraging startups. Now we've seen many of the startup companies out there saying, we are facing tax terrorism because capital infusion is being viewed as income. So that's why I'm saying a completely conducive atmosphere needs to be set up. So to answer Vijay's point, all those guys who are elsewhere in the world doing work, they should be told, come back to India. We will create our own Silicon Valley, our own Shanghai, our own Beijing. We will create it all out here, and this is the place where all this technology will roll out from. So Vikram, I'm sure you're wanting to do it, and so is the PM.
No, Vikram, when we started the startup movement, all our startups were going to Singapore and Silicon Valley. 3 years down the line, Mitra Biotech, etc., relocated from Singapore, from Silicon Valley into India. The challenges are all here. I mean, if you are in Silicon Valley, you have no challenges. You may have the best innovators. There are no challenges. The challenges are all here. You have to find the problems here and the solutions here. And therefore, my view is that to the challenges of humanity, there's no better place than India. And if you are able to find solutions for Indian problems, you're really finding a solution for the world, actually. And therefore, my view is that the onward march of technology, artificial intelligence, blockchain, additive machinery, 3D printing, all this is inevitable, and the earlier we embrace it, the better it is.
And you are putting a logical, cohesive framework to help people.
No, we've done this. 2,500 schools, tinkering labs, starting from 6th standard onward. No country in the world has done what India is doing.
What Niti Aayog has done in the last 1.5 to 2 years is amazing. Under Amitabh's leadership, it's been fantastic. But I want to add to a point. 2 days ago, with the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, I launched, and naturally the Chief Minister launched, and Shah Rukh Khan was also there to launch, and we launched LEAP. We want Mumbai, sir, as I reported to you earlier, to become the ultimate fintech center of the world, because financial services is a given. The financial technologies now is the supermaster, right? Yeah. So we did LEAP. What is LEAP? LEAP is light regulatory environment, enabling circumstances, augmented infrastructure, and P is partnerships around the world. So we called it Maharashtra Leap. This is my own idea that I launched along with the CM, Maharashtra sir. Parso maine kiya tha, sir. And I tell you, this is the opportunity in India that we can build the most frugal financial enterprise in the whole world.
All right. Last word from you, Vijay. What would be your final advice on this? What do we need to do to make sure that we are not going to be left behind either by Silicon Valley or by China?
I think there is no doubt about it. The amount of work this government in the last 3 years have done around startups is far more than any other previous entity ever thought about it. So it is much better. If we have a pain like we talked about, there is a capital gain tax, there is an audience to resolve it. And then initiatives like LEAP, initiatives like Startup India, initiatives which are they are celebrating the startup culture, at least are different. I just want to quote one interesting number here. 10 years back, when I wanted to, I was going to get married, or somebody in my office going to get married, they used to take a job at a more professional place, more known place, more known, versus people wouldn't have otherwise given their daughters to get married to this dude who's working in a startup. But today, startup is hip and hap, versus earlier, it was like down the drain, nearly nobody cares.
It's a very good
So
point.
Vikram,
I hope that's a good way to start.
Very good point.
I mean,
Startups are
Vijay's Paytm bank has acquired close to 200 million customers in a very short time span. His target is to acquire 500 million customers by 2020, unparalleled in the history. What it shows is that the future is mobile, future is digital, and the future is India.
I'm going to end it there for the moment. Let's hope that all of that is correct. The future is digital and the future is mobile. Thanks a lot so much for joining us. We'll be back soon.